Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Anyway, now that we are on the server and that we've configured all the miscellaneous things for the management, now we can go ahead and actually install the proxy server. So let's just, I'm gonna go ahead and become root here. And by the way, don't share your password with anyone for root or any passwords whatsoever. I don't care. As I said, I'm gonna destroy everything upon the completion of this tutorial. Anyway, we shall type in apt-get install squid3. So it might take a little bit of time. Yes, and the beautiful thing about the system is that, I only have one CPU and I think I have around 12 megabytes of RAM. And this is running hilariously well. Granted, there is no GUI, but I don't really need it for anything. It's a server. Okay, so now that the installation process is done, I would like to start configuring the Squid proxy server. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to need to modify the configuration file. It is a good idea and a good practice in general to actually create a backup of that file. That would be my phone. I'm terrible with my phone. People always send me messages and ring me at wrong times. It's hilarious. Anyway, let's go ahead and back up our config file. So if something goes wrong, we always can use it as a reference pointer. We can just go ahead and restore it. So etc squid3 squid.conf needs to be copied to etc squid3 squid.conf, and we're gonna name it .original. Or you can name it backup or something like that, doesn't really matter. Next up, we will need to go ahead and, well, actually we won't. Basically, just prior to the editing, we should make some sort of a copy, and not a bad idea. It's a good idea to actually protect it from writing, so you will have the original settings as a reference. So no matter what happens, we won't be able to write to this file unless that is changed. So ch mod, and we're gonna go ahead and state that it's minus x, not minus x actually, that's execute, minus w. So we are subtracting the write permissions. Actually, let me go ahead and show it to you first. ls-l should see squid3 squid original, and you can see that the root user still has write permissions, but if I take away those permissions, nobody will be able to modify it unless the permission is explicitly granted by root. So chmod minus w, and let's go ahead and do the listing now. See, nobody has the right to actually write to the file now. Not the user, not the group, not the world, no one. Everybody can read it, which is fine, but nobody can actually write to it. Okay, now we're gonna need to type in vim slash etc squid3 squid.conf, and welcome to Squid 3.4.8. Let's go ahead and start messing around with it. So in order to set the port, the TCP port to listen on, I mean, you can use the default one, which should be 3128. You can change the, let me just go ahead and find it, http underscore port. Disable flag on HTTP instead default. Okay, so we could theoretically change the port here. It says since Squid 3.0 uses the disable PTMU directory flag on HTTP port instead. Okay, so something has changed from the previous versions that I have looked at, but I mean, it doesn't really affect us now because I'm not going to be really changing the port. I just showed you. There you go. It says HTTP port 3128. So if you want some different port that the Squid proxy will listen on, you can just change this number. But I, at this point in time, don't really see a need to actually change it, really. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. You can change the visible host name and give the specific host name to the Squid server, but that's not really that important. There is also a way of actually limiting access to your proxy server, like only a certain set of IP addresses can access it. But we're not going to be doing that because the idea is to allow everybody to use it. And then I will show you when you use it how you can monitor the traffic, and the same method can be applied to everybody else, even though that's like, that's not really a very nice thing to do at all. So you don't really need to actually change anything here. I just wanted to show you where you can change things. Port being one of the key things to change here, but it's good to have the backup file anyway. Before we actually start the server itself, we will need to punch a hole in our firewall. And if you have Nmap installed on your main system, and you should, if you don't, just type in DNF installed Nmap. And on the client system, and this should install it. It's a fairly small package. You see it's already installed here. If I do Nmap, the IP address of this server is 46.101.153.159. If I press enter, and I'm scanning myself, so that's fine. I am perfectly entitled to scan myself. It says that I have a port 22, which is the default SSH port, which is open. Our PC behind this is something. And that the Squid actually 3128 is open as well, which is nice that it did that by default. But we will see, will there be any interference from the firewall? Now, next up is systemctl. You can use service command as well. I'm just going to go ahead and give a status Squid 3 service. Is it actually running? Yes, it's actually running. It is loaded. If I do like, if you want to start it or restart it, you can just, instead of status, you can type in either start or restart or whatever you want there. So that's perfectly fine. Okay, so now let's go back to the proxy list here and let's see if we have actually configured everything right. In case we have, this is going to work. In case we haven't, we're going to go to the next tutorial and begin troubleshooting, because I don't really want to exclude the troubleshooting part from these tutorials. A lot of this actually, some of the commands I've written in my notes, but a lot of this I'm doing on the go. So the problems that I encounter are I figured that the same problems that I encounter are the same problems that you will encounter. So I figured I would just be solving them on the go, and you would be able to get some troubleshooting knowledge along the way if something does go wrong. So etc proxychains.conf. Oh my god, I have a lot of them here. Just press cipher insert. And this is all gonna go away. It needs to be banished. It needs to be gone. So I can't have it there. And we also didn't specify what sort of a proxy will it be. So what's the time? Okay, I'm running a little bit short on time, I think, anyway, because I didn't turn on my stopwatch. But we'll come back in the follow-up tutorial where we will actually specify the type of proxy, the IP address, and the port. The port is 3128, the one that we left. So I'll see you in the follow-up.